Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm a minute late there. I was dreaming over here, so sorry. Anyway, uh, glad you guys are all here tonight. Appreciate the attendance. Boy, what a week, huh? We had Sunday, the Democrats in the Senate voted to approve uh, the resolution to keep the government open for another couple of months. And, I know a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about that. Um, Shortly after the vote, the Indivisible group, Ezra Levine and his wife put out a letter that was, and I've got it here. We'll go over that tonight, but it was um, a pretty feisty letter, saying what a bad job that was to go ahead and pass that. And but we'll talk through that here in a little bit too. A couple other things that happened. One great thing happened this week. Tuesday, my grandson, my older grandson, had a concert. It was a Veterans Day concert with the Morgantown High School band, and they did such a wonderful job. It was impressive. And both my grandsons marched in the Veterans Day parade there in Morgantown. So that was one day of joy that I had this week. Then the news started coming again, and we've probably all heard that the Epstein files have been released. Some of them have been released. These Epstein files that were released this week were from the Epstein estate and not things coming from the Department of Justice, which is still uh, up in the air right now and something that's being fought. However, the representative that was waiting to get sworn in did get sworn in, and she promptly signed on as the 118th signature to force a vote in the House to demand the DOJ release their files. And of course, it's got to go to the Senate, and in the Senate, it's got to get a meet a 60% threshold in order to keep filibuster at bay. So, that's something that we'll be watching out for. Probably that vote will probably come up sometime next week. Um, and that was one of the big reasons why uh, Speaker Johnson wanted to keep the Congress or the House out of session, was so that if the Senate or when the Senate did pass the bill, they wouldn't be there and have to worry about doing it. Plus the fact that he doesn't want to vote on the release of the Epstein files from the DOJ. So it was all a big thing there for a couple of months, but that's all over with. You know, um, and like I said, we'll talk about the budget thing here in a minute. But a couple of things here that I put on top of the list, just for local interest, I guess, or West Virginia interest. I went to I'm on the Montague County Democratic Committee, and we had our meeting this past Monday. And I know that we talked at the meeting about trying to get people to run for office and, um, having them come talk to us. And the Democratic leadership in Charleston has, training for them and all that sort of thing if they do decide to run. But I know that the chair of our committee Monday said that he's been getting a lot of text messages and phone calls and emails about people in Montague County interested in running. He said it's really on an uptick this session. So hopefully that's a good thing, and hopefully we get some good candidates, at least in the House and Senate races in the state legislature from around Montague County, which a lot of the even your representatives, I'm sure, uh, represent more than one county or parts of one county, and that's the way it is with us. We're so gerrymandered that some of our people represent two counties or three counties, three pieces of counties, so it's a mess. But anyway, that's one of the things that he talked about. There was another thing that came up at the meeting, and I thought I'd bring it up tonight in case anyone is interested in following up on with your own groups. It's called the Campaign for Keeping the Vaccine Mandate in West Virginia. And we barely touched on it Monday, but I asked Cal, who is our uh, chairman, to tell me a little bit about it. And this is what he said, that this campaign is part of an ongoing movement by Robin Godfrey, who is an attorney from Charleston, and he's been very vocal about keeping West Virginia's strong immunization laws in place. So, he's an advocate for the immunization laws, the ones that Morrissey did his um, executive order on last year, saying that you can have exemptions from that if you find somebody that'll sign off on it for you and that sort of thing. So uh, anyway, there was a strong push. I'm just telling you the same thing. There was a strong push by Republicans, especially the governor, uh, orders and allowing the religious and philosophical exemptions for childhood vaccinations. And SB 460 was a hotly contested bill that would have required just the parents' consent, basically, that I'm not going to get my kid immunized. But that eventually failed to pass from the Senate into the House. So that one died last year, one of the few that died on the floor. And it effectively killed the efforts to weaken the vaccination requirements for this year. So we're good this year. But we're really sort of watching for the Republicans to bring that back up again and try to push it through this time. And he wants to get ahead of the curve to potentially halt that before session begins. So um, that's the sort of the crux of the whole program is getting contacting your senators and your House of Delegates reps, and before they even go into session, and talk to them about your opinions and what you think you need to have done uh, in regards to a bill like this one. He said there are currently some cases pending in court regarding the legality of Governor Morris's executive order. One of the key arguments is that since the legislature overwhelmingly voted the bill down, then the executive order should be withdrawn because it obviously not the will of the legislature, which should reflect the will of the people of West Virginia, correct? And it should be withdrawn, but he refused to withdraw that order. So it's still in effect right now. So um, as I get information on this, I'll pass that along to everyone, but it sounds like it's sort of a grassroots thing to uh, get with your representatives and talk to them about, um, you know, keeping the vaccine mandate in place because West Virginia is one of the only states that actually requires vaccinations for children in to go to school to be before they can get into school. And then, as they grow older, the other vaccinations that are uh, recommended are also required by state law right now. So we're hoping to keep it that. I'm hoping to keep it that way personally because I think, if somebody somebody's child who's not immunized comes to school with, my kids, and they get sick, deathly ill, or die, then that's going to make me really angry. So really angry if that would happen. But anyway, that's my opinion on that, and I'll keep you posted on what's going on with this. Um, Another little bit of good news that came out of the meeting was that, at least in Montague County, Chris Claypool has announced that he is going to run for the West Virginia Senate District 2, which covers part of Montague County. And that's good because uh, we need people to run against every Republican who's running this year. I don't know that some of those. Maybe all of the House of Delegates. Is there anyone in here that knows the actual terms of the House of Delegates? I think it's 2 years, right? But I'm not sure if it's.
Yeah, House of Delegates is every 2 years.
Yeah. So this year the whole House is up for election. Is that right? Oh,
Yes.
it's
But
not.
this, I believe the Senate has staggered terms. I can't remember whether
Yeah.
it's 4 or 6.
Yeah. I looked it up, but I didn't really. It just said 2 year terms is all I could find. It didn't really say. So anyway, the other thing that, and this is something here that is also touches some of the other Democratic committees around the state. Last year, the some of the Democratic committees got together, and every Thursday they went down to Charleston during the legislative session, and they were there to, have a lunch with all of our Democratic House members and the senators. So we voted this past Monday to continue that as our portion of it. So they're going to check with all the other um, Democratic committees around and see if they want to continue that as well. I think, okay, I see Warren said that the Senate are 4 year terms. Right. Thank you very much. Better keep that up here so I can see you guys talking. I forget where I was at now. Okay, so we're going to continue that lunch every Thursday while they're in session down there, and the reports have been that they really enjoyed it, and um, I'm not sure. I think there were like 5 different counties who participated last year, so we were hoping to get some more this year to go in with it. I just got a little message here on Signal just before we started that for those who aren't not subscribed to our Signal chat, word has reached us that there are several hundred ICE trainees in West Virginia right now, and matter of fact, I found them on Blue Sky, and what's the Bovino or whatever the chief is that was in Chicago. He is here as well, and he was talking to the news people, and said he was on Fox talking to him and said, but we probably will be deployed to other cities around the nation, such as he said, Chicago. Um, uh, Los Angeles, and he mentioned Charlotte, North Carolina. So I don't know, but hopefully they won't stay here in West Virginia. And in another West Virginia sort of news, uh, the Kanawha County Circuit Judge, Richard Lindsay, ruled this week that it was okay to allow the West Virginia Army National Guard members to remain deployed in Washington, D.C. That's been a case probably for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, as soon as they started. the West Virginia Citizens Action Group there in Charleston, along with the ACLU, filed a lawsuit saying that, it was against the law. It didn't meet the requirements that it needed to allow Morrissey to just send troops over there. Uh, but this judge said, yeah, it's okay. It was supposed to be during an emergency, and I still have yet to hear anything about an emergency in Washington, D.C., but that was his judgment. I don't know if they're going to appeal that or not. So, um, the other sort of good news is that those 300 National Guard people could be home by the end of November. However, in a news article today, Governor Morrissey said he is talking with other authorities about a possible extension. And in that same news article, it said that formal orders have already been issued last week extending the deployment of the District of Columbia Guard through the end of February of 2026. So I don't know if they'll need as many troops there. Maybe we can bring the West Virginia guys back home, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. And I'll keep you posted on that as well as I hear about it and as it goes along. So, so, so like I said before, the Ezra Levine, sorry, is really upset. He's the one of the co-founders. He and his wife are co-founders of Indivisible, and he got really upset Sunday night, and he wrote this good long letter about what he thought happened. And yesterday he was on with the leaders meeting. There was a leaders meeting on Zoom yesterday that had, I don't know, I think there were 70 or 80 leaders that came to it. And then today he was on the What's the Plan weekly show that he and his wife do, and he's kind of tamed down a little bit. He said, well, he was really upset. I mean, you could tell reading this letter he was madder than a hornet. But I kind of agree with some of it. I don't agree with all of it, but I'm going to go through and just kind of tell you what he was talking about. He said that first of all, he said this was a big surrender by the Republic or by the Democrats. He said that we did not just get a bad deal; we got essentially nothing out of the deal. Um, so the original Democratic demands, he said, were three: permanent extension of the the Affordable Care Act subsidies, Medicaid funding restored, and no more blank checks for the regime. The regime has just been using impoundment restrictions and a rescission of programs to get money, and they're grabbing money that way instead of actually, well, they just don't do anything the right way. So they're just going out there and getting it wherever they can get. So anyway, his feeling is that the Democrats dropped the Medicaid funding demands immediately after making them. He said this was something that happened not just Sunday. And he said, first of all, they dropped them from permanent to multi-year and finally 1 year. Well, I really thought I didn't have any even an inkling of a sense that the Republicans would go for a permanent or even a multi-year, but I thought they might go for a 1 year extension. At least, if we knew that there was a 1 year extension, we could probably get maybe some negotiations going in there. But what's happening right now is that since that extension is not going to be happening, the healthcare increases will just continue and continue and continue. So until we can do something different. Now, since this is a continuing resolution, it really only it's going to run out, I think, the end of January, maybe no, the end of December, um, and we'll be in the same boat as we were Saturday. Nothing. So, but the one good thing that came out of this, and this is kind of my rebuttal to his whole thing, you know, since the vote, um, and since the letter came out, I've had time to look and do a little more research to different news sources, and I read like the Bulwark and a lot of the things that are on Substack, and different opinions of different people. Rick Wilson, love Rick Wilson, and other news sources. ABC, NBC, not so much CBS, but they might have something every once in a while. But um, I've seen so many variations as to whether we got screwed or what happened. I know we got screwed, but I don't know how. Um, I don't know how to say it, how bad it was. At least um, we'll be able to feed some people now. The SNAP benefits are going to come back. In fact, um, I saw in um, the West Virginia Watch, the little newspaper that I love to read in Charleston, that the some of the SNAP benefits are already going out to the people. And I also saw another thing on Facebook that said some of the SNAP, because they got their SNAP cards recharged, um, people are going out. I mean, I can't blame them. They haven't had any food for a month or 2 months. So, but some of those cards aren't working correctly. So, the recommendation on the article I read there was to maybe wait till tomorrow and go back again and try it. So, but anyway, this is like we're talking around the country, 42 million people and children will now be able to afford some food. And so, that's a good thing. So now West Virginia's food stamp recipients will have their full November benefits on their credit cards. It said either today or first thing Friday. So that's what Governor Morrissey said this morning. Like I said, it seems there may be some problem with that, but they've worked, and they actually have had to work to get that up and running so quickly. I think this week shouldn't have had to do it at all, but at least they got it going. So with that, I know there's still an awful lot of terrible things, but I think that the Democrats showed the American public that this is the one and only party, we are, that actually cares about people, because the starvation, and I don't know if it's starvation at this point, but it would have gone on and on and on if they hadn't gone back and if they hadn't done something else, because that idiot Johnson, he was going to stay out. Trump doesn't really give a darn about, he's too busy building his, a ballroom. So, they had to do something. And can you imagine being a senator from any state, really, um, that how many phone calls you're going to get every 1 minute of your life saying, look, my kids are hungry, I'm hungry, we're all hungry. You do something, do something, you know. And that was the thing that really got me. Like I said, I know we're in big trouble. Otherwise, still we don't have the benefits for the Affordable Care Act. and that sort of thing. But like I said, we're coming up to the point where they are going to have to do something, and I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats, I think, in order to solve this problem. And it's going to come to a real point at the end of December when the CR runs out. Then they start all over again. So, at first, even when the courts told President Trump and the USDA to release the money because we have in the USDA there's actually a kind of a rainy day fund, and it's for just exactly that. It's for times when the government is otherwise shut down or out of money or whatever, that there's money in there to feed the people. But he wouldn't do it, and then he finally came back. Excuse me. After the court says yes, you will do that. He finally came back and said, "Well, all right, I'll pay half of it." And then they said, "No, you've got to pay all of it." And of course, it goes right to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said they put a pause on it. We're not going to look at it yet because we're going to look at it, but we're not going to make a ruling yet because we don't have enough information or whatever their excuse was. Luckily, on Sunday, the Democrats voted for the bill. It got passed. Trump immediately signed it, and it's in play right now, so that at least those people are eating. So, that's one thing about this letter that Ezra wrote that I don't agree with, that we got 100% screwed. We did get screwed in a number of other ways, but and so that's my 2 cents for that. um, the other thing that he was upset about is about Schumer, and I will agree that the Senate leadership failed. He's like I said before, though, you get to decide when you're at home or you're even at the office and you're getting phone calls every 5 seconds saying, we're hungry out here. What are we going to do? So I think probably the phone calls um, and the food crisis for the people and the children outweighed what the Affordable Care Act subsidies. When you're looking at phone calls, I can imagine that people are more hungry than they are, uh, you know, at this moment, worrying about their health care, especially if they're, you know, relatively well, but to begin with, but they're still hungry. So I know that today, well, yesterday, actually, in that meeting that Indivisible had with the leaders, is they have developed a primary um, election plan, and they are hoping that all the indivisibles around the nation sign on to it. They sent a survey out yesterday about what we thought, and basically it's to really look at people like in states that not, of course, it doesn't really affect us since we're a red state. We're trying to get a blue person in, so that's one of the things that's the big challenge for us right now. But he was talking about people in the representatives in blue states that are, to leave the people who are in safe, relatively safe, secure positions, especially in states like he was talking about Massachusetts and some of the New England states where, it's traditionally Democrat, and and actually uh, come into states that are struggling. And I put in there, I said, hey, West Virginia, come and see us. We're struggling. Send us some money. And so that's part of the plan is to work it with states that actually are going to need help, or states that even blue states that have people who are some of the seats are uh, up for grabs. Basically, they're not 100% guaranteed. So they're going to look at all that sort of stuff and come back to us after this survey. And I couldn't print the thing or I would send it to everybody, but I'm going to make sure that everybody tomorrow in the summary has a copy of something they can look at. And if you want to, put in your 2 cents, I'd certainly be glad to have it for the survey when I send it back. Then he goes on and says we should no longer trust the Senate Democrats who decline to come out against the leadership and that sort of thing. I don't know. Like I said, everybody's got their own story. And I will say the 8 Democrats who voted for, um, the bill and sending it up to the president to sign, none of those are up for election next year or this coming cycle. So they're safe anyway. And they kind of think now that he does anyway, that they're saying, well, these guys, all the Democrats got together and said, what can we do to get this thing going? Well, we'll take these people who are safe, let them vote with the Republicans because they're not going to be primaried or anything this time anyway. And then the rest of us can vote against it and still will look good. So I don't know. I don't know if, I mean, I don't know where they got that information, if they even got it or have made it up, but I don't know if I agree with that 100% or not. So, you know, but I do agree with, since they did go ahead and pass that bill, uh, it's going to really embolden the Republicans and Donald Trump to do whatever they want to do now. Because all they got to do is say, well, if you don't do this, we'll just withhold this, and that'll hurt your people. But they don't realize, or maybe they do, and they don't really give a damn. But it's hurting their people too. Matter of fact, some of the red states are the worst states who need the help the worst, and most of the red states, I think. So I don't know. Well, I've talked enough. I hope somebody else has an opinion, and we can talk about that a little bit too. Um, oh, yes, yes. I'm looking at the chat here. Cosby, glad you said that. Um, Also, in this bill, man, this is another reason that the Democrats should not have passed this bill. Or maybe they could, in their strategy, thinking, they can use it later. But there's a little provision inside that bill that was like buried in that bill right at the last minute. And what it did, and you may have heard about it by now, what it did was there are 8 Republican senators, only 8 Republican senators. If it affects no one else, it doesn't affect any of the House members, and it doesn't affect any of the other Senate members. So these 8 people got put into that bill that because of January 6th, their phones were I don't know if they were confiscated or if they were just if the FBI and everybody who was investigating got hold of their records and could see who they called, when they called, who called them, and that sort of thing. There was no voice involved. It was all just paper records. So they said, well, that hurt us. That hurt us very deeply having to do that. And uh, because, there was no reason for it. We weren't involved and blah, blah, blah. Well, in this bill now, because their phones and because the FBI did not informed them that they were taking those records. They were asking the provider, the carriers, for those records. They're saying, well, you took it without our permission and all this kind of stuff, which that's going to happen to you and me. You know that? They're going to take anything they want without permission from us, and they probably already have. So, but anyway, these guys, and maybe gals, I don't know who all they were, but so there's 8 of them. I know I'm making this story way too long, but there were 8 of them, and now each phone that they had, that the FBI or whoever was investigating got the records for each phone, they can sue the government $500,000. It's basically a slam dunk, right? So for that, for $500,000. And then and that's just those people, nobody else, just those people whose phones got looked through. And there's another one. I can't remember. Is it up here? Um, what was the other? There's another $500,000 they can get, and I can't remember why now. Um, Hopefully somebody can tell me that up here in chat.
The minimum is
Right.
500,000. They can go up as high as they want.
Well, yeah, right. But there was another thing too. Man, I wish I could remember what that was. Should have written it down. But yeah, so just for those people. So, Jamie Raskin was on last night on MSNBC last night. And he says, hey, you know,
500,000 for each phone.
for each phone.
Yeah, their office phone,
Yeah, each phone, right.
500,000 for each one.
Thank you, dear. I don't know what I'd do without her. But anyway, yeah. So, but Jamie was on there last night, and he said there's actually a Republican House of Representatives member from Pennsylvania who had his phone taken, and maybe all of his phones taken. I don't know, but he's not in that deal, so he can't do it. So they were only looking out for themselves. So, that's the kind of dirty business that we're looking at from our fellows in the red across the hall, or across the aisle, as they say. So,
Rick, the phones weren't taken. The
no, no,
phone companies, Jack Smith just requested the data from the phone
exactly.
companies, from the carriers. So nobody lost their phones.
Yeah, right. That's what he said. They just asked for so it was all paperwork. It's not a telephone was taken. And but still, they thought, well, that's an invasion of our privacy, and nobody told us it was going on, and blah blah blah. So but it's just a little cut out there for them. It's they couldn't give anything to their farmers or anything, but they sure got that little cut out for themselves. It's pretty. But it was in the bill and it got passed, so they're happy. So apparently, people, some
So
some of them
the
didn't.
Republicans in the House of Representatives said they didn't know this was in there. Even Mike Johnson is mad. So
Oh,
they're
yeah.
going to have a vote in the House to get rid of that little add-on.
Mhm. Yeah, well, Jamie Raskins was on, like I said, he was on last night, and he said that he wrote a bill that would do that very thing, and he said when he took it to the speaker, he wouldn't entertain it. So maybe he just wanted to write his own. I don't know. But it shouldn't be, that should not be happening. So, and it's against the law. When he said, hey, he said a senator or a representative in the House is not supposed to be um, enriched. And it's kind of funny that he said that. It's not supposed to be enriched by something in a law that he votes for or she votes for. So because they voted for that, I would think that would be that law that's now a bill. Well, it isn't, it's a law now, but I would think that would be invalid because they voted for it and really weren't supposed to. So, Dan, you're right. No electronics are safe, not even doorbells and security cameras. Yeah. If it's on your Wi-Fi, it's not safe. Right. I watched, speaking of that, it's a different subject, and I know you guys are probably happy to get away from this other stuff. But Rachel Maddow was on a couple of weeks ago, I guess, and she introduced an app on there called Pegasus. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's being used by ICE and by other intelligence agencies. I don't even know what ICE kind of agency that's called, just terrorism and harassment kind of agency. But they have this app now that can actually it puts itself into your phone. You don't know it did it. You don't know it's there. You can't get it off. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a walk by, where they get close to your phone and it zaps over. I don't know how they get it on there exactly, but what it does, it can track your whereabouts and everything on the phone. They have it. It's like opens up the phone to them. So I was going to play. I've got a little snippet of it. I was trying to download her little video of her talking about that, but I couldn't find one. But yeah, it was developed here. I don't know, not long ago, but I guess they're all using it now to find out what's going on. So listen to your conversations and everything. So it's out there. Yeah, see, Mike, there's a book out called Pegasus. Yeah. Well, they named whoever developed this program named it Pegasus, and it's out there now. So, you're out there, and we're all vulnerable to all that sort of thing. So right now, if you're out at a protest or a rally or a picnic, you're there at your own risk now because they can track you and know that you were there from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. or whatever. So, and they can look on your phone and see what you did during all that times. A lot of bad stuff going on, and it doesn't seem to be going to get any better. So we just have to be vigilant in what we do. I guess one good thing is that this Zoom link is encrypted from end to end. Amanda raised her hand. Yes. Amanda, go ahead. Can't see.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure this is just preaching to the choir, but it's just like I just can't stop thinking about it. But I feel like with all the discussion around SNAP being taken away, and then the Democrats caving so that they could give SNAP back, I think what needs the real discussion is not being had, which is why are so many people on SNAP in the first place? Why do so many people rely on it? Especially because I think somewhere between 40 and 70 or 80% of households that receive SNAP have people working. And the companies that are like making billions and billions and billions and billions and just raking in huge amounts of money are not even paying their people enough to live without aid from SNAP and things like that. So why is that not more of an issue? Because instead of, just focusing on the fact that the government shut down and people can't get their SNAP benefits, people need to be focusing so much more on getting the money away from these big, huge companies and distributing it more. And I think the Democratic Party, of course, is almost as guilty as Republicans for taking money from big donors and all of that. And I just think that the right conversations are not exactly being had, which is why are we here in the first place?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just wanted to say that.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think you're right. you know, I've talked to, I talked to one of my very good friends who is a business manager for a local construction union. And because I was talking, well, actually, I was trying to find a speaker for the last No Kings down in Morgantown, but we got to talking, and I said, why are so many of the union guys and gals coming and voting as the Republicans or voting for Republicans? Um, he said, well, he says, he's Ricky. He calls me Ricky. He said, Ricky, I'm going to tell you. He said, in West Virginia, he said, I hate to say it because, but the Democrats have kind of turned their back on the unions. He said that, it's the Republicans right now are who are bringing us money, and they're getting work for us. And I thought, well, maybe that's true. I don't know. I used to work for the building trades a long time ago, and he and I were good friends then. And there was at that time, this was back in 1990, in the 90s. I worked for them all through the 90s, and back at that time, there was maybe in all the unions that I had 15 different trades in my council, and of all of those people, maybe there were a dozen, or a couple dozen people who voted Republican, and we always supported all the Democratic members of the House and everything, and it's just it's like, of course, I've been away from that for a long time. I really didn't know what was going on until I talked to him. But we need to get those guys back. And Amanda, to help answer your question, is we need to convince. And these union guys, they know they work on membership too, right? They work off of membership, and that's how they make their money to operate and keep things going. We need to somehow, get with them and convince everybody that being in a union is very beneficial to the people. I mean, this, so we've got to convince the unions to come back to us so that we can help them and they can help us. That's the only way well, not the only way, but that is one of the really big ways that things were going in the 90s. We fought and fought and fought for that. So I don't know I just don't know what to do now, because I'm telling you, I'm about out of ideas, and girls. And I think I suppose, no matter what I tell you, that when the Republicans voted Sunday, that sort of deflated me a little bit. I was really riding high last week, and then all of a sudden it all blew up. But there'll be another day, and we will be working at it again. Mike, you're right. Affordability is a big, big issue, and it should be. The reason all these 42 million people are on SNAP is because, in my opinion, just like Amanda said, we've got the Walmarts of the world and all the other ones, Target and all those places. They're not paying their people enough, and they're not giving benefits. They need to help people out. I mean, if you got you can't get a good workforce if you don't take care of the workforce. And the day of the secure pension, and secure job, period, is gone, long gone. Back in the old days, people worked until they worked in a job for 40 years, same place, doing everything. And, when they finished, they got a nice pension. But nowadays, the pension isn't even really there because you've got to, yeah. Um, I'm reading as I'm talking, but
Right.
yes, what was that? Is that a wild dog? I think so. Yeah, Warren says that less than 10% of working Americans are unionized. Yeah, yeah, and that is, well, I don't know about 10%. I don't know if it's that low. It might be. It could be. Um, but we have companies that do take care of their workers, and they're not unionized, and that's okay as long as as long as you take care of, and that's the way we thought back in the 90s. Is when we went out on a strike or we went out to a contractor, we talked to them and they said, well, I pay my guys this much and this much, and they have this and this and this. And, we could account for that. We could actually go and look at their payroll, especially if it was on a state job or a federal job, because those are public. You can go look at those anytime. And, if we could verify that, then we didn't really mess with them because, you know, they had their own guys, they traveled with them, and they paid them good money to go. And, that's the whole idea of what we were there for. So, we didn't really do much with them, but some of the other ones, you had to, some of the other contractors, they had their people renting their hard hats. They rented them from the company. They rented a tool belt, you know. Um, uh, so those are the kind of people that we went after because that's just, you know, most guys have their own helmets. They have their own hard hats, right? But still, the idea of making a person rent theirs while they're on site. Anyway, um, I'm done talking now, so somebody better. We've only got a few minutes. So let's hear from somebody else out there that I know somebody has an opinion about something they'd like to throw.
Yeah, Rick, if I can jump in.
Yes.
Sorry, I did actually just so you know, I did have my hand up. I was just
Oh,
trying
sorry.
to kind of
Well,
respect
I
the
did
flow of the
mine here.
meeting. And I think this is my first state meeting I've made. So hi everybody, Warren Hills boss. I'm the de facto head of Friendly City Indivisible in Fairmont.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And yeah, so I'll try not to sort of replicate anything that's already been touched on. Because yeah, it's a fraught moment right now, given the whiplash between a really resounding victory last week on Tuesday, followed by the real head scratcher vote, or divisive vote, I should say, is probably the best way to characterize it fairly to all opinions on Sunday. And I'll be honest, I've been wrestling with it a lot. The rest of my leadership team in Fairmont, we have lots of emotions, but not. I mean, I would say most people, like one important thing to recognize is most people see it as a losing move, right? Even people on Snap from the few folks in my life who were most directly affected by that portion. Yeah, they're excited to be able to go buy a real amount of groceries. But on the other hand, they're not idiots, and they're not single issue like that. In a way, like to them, it looks weak, even if. So I think even if you are sympathetic to arguments for the move, which I do think there are some reasonable sounding arguments for it, even though if I don't agree in the final analysis. I do think they should have tried to held out for a real deal, some actual negotiation. That's why they were winning the argument, even though the minority party is usually the party blamed for a shutdown. At least funding the government should be pretty basic, right? But this was being rammed down America's throats, and it wasn't even the first time this year, right? America wanted the Democrats to hold the line and actually stand for something, and they were. And I think part of the problem even is if they had just taken this basically the same deal when it was offered about a week in some ways, what people say, well, see, at least now they're talking, right? And like they did draw a line, at least, even if it was a kind of symbolic line. They proved that they would shut the government down, right? But in this case, they did drag it out just long enough to really start to make it painful, make it real for pretty much everyone. And it seems like they basically ignored people going without food, but jumped on it as soon as the airlines and the flying public, which aren't your average Americans these days, were starting to be affected, right? So it feels like class warfare and the poor people are losing again. Not sure that's what's going on in their head. You got to be careful not to assume people's intentions in this business. Um, but to me, the really sort of like either or thing to take out of it, the Democrats definitely in the Senate Democrats did not do well. Their messaging has been bad. Their communications have been bad all year. They still haven't really communicated enough or effectively with the broader public. They've left it to sort of their supporters to do it for them, including like the social media influencer types, the sort of independent media, some people on the mainstream media, people like us, right? Funny thing is, we've still managed to get our message across, so that's an important thing. Like we should recognize that there are some signs of progress or strength. This wasn't a total collapse, right? And it's important to keep in mind that we are fighting for so much more than even just the healthcare subsidies or SNAP or a just budget. Like there's also, the ICE Gestapo, the warmongering in the Caribbean, the utter destruction of our reputation abroad, both economically and militarily, even. I don't know whether anybody noticed but me, at least in these parts, but the UK has decided to stop sharing any intelligence from the Caribbean with the United States of America. That is mind blowing. Imagine if something like that had happened in World War II, because some people think we're already basically in a version of World War III, right? It just wars are different now. So it's important to recognize that our movement still has a lot of strength, that we even
think we might have lost him there for a minute. Can you all see me now? Okay, well, let's see if we can get him back. So yeah, what he was talking about there was really interesting. I hope he can.
I think he froze, Rick.
I think he did too. I don't. Maybe he can log back in and finish his thought.
Looks like he's back.
Oh yeah, I see him.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
You froze for a second, and then it seemed to get bumped or something. I recognize.
You did it again.
And if anything, we need to be careful. On one hand, I do like supporting meaningful objectives in other states like Prop 50 or the Virginia election, just to name a couple. But we really need to be thinking about how we as West Virginians can work together to sort of make the impact that helps get resources coming in to help us make this state even a battleground state again. Because even just making this state competitive next year will turn heads and really freak Republicans out. Capito should be one of the safest seats in the country. That's what all the conventional wisdom says. But we're one of the most dependent, one of the most impacted states. So that combination of, going against expectations and real vulnerability and being sold out by our current leaders in really plain, explicit way. I think we could actually, especially here in West Virginia, actually make a lot out of all of this going on. And there's still another round to go I think at the end of January, I think is when the new CR will be up. So things will be a little bit reset. But we do still need to keep trying to do what we can to push for Medicaid to be put back on the table. Cause like I'm going to lose Medicaid. Like I'm going to be uninsured next year the way things are looking right now. Right. SNAP also, like they already cut SNAP, right? They're adding work requirements and stuff like that. So there's still so much we can hammer the incumbents on. We are fighting a fascist regime, not just, it's not a horse race, right? So even if we can just help do damage to the regime that is hurting us, regardless of whether it's Democrats or independents or whoever that benefits from that, we need to be focused on that, I think. And I think we can do a lot of good work here. So this is really cool. Hopefully we can make some cool connections to be able to collaborate and coordinate more between counties.
Yeah.
So we're not just relying on the national structure to give us, protest days every once in a while.
Right.
So I would say look at next week, next weekend. There's a Remove the Regime festival almost of sorts in DC. Now their goal is to try to get as many people to DC as possible for that. It's not a nationwide thing, but I still think some solidarity actions could be really cool if we could whip them together.
Yeah.
And for example, here in Marion, we're working on still, even with the funding back, we're still going to be working on focusing more on like food and sort of survival programs in the community to make us more resilient, so we're not as dependent on SNAP in the future,
Yeah.
as well as other kinds of projects that are economically focused, since that's really important here. Anyway, I've spoken enough.
Well,
Good to meet everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Hope you all have a good night.
That was a great segue, because if there are other leaders on the Zoom here tonight, I've got an email ready to go out to all the all the indivisible groups in West Virginia. I think I've got addresses for 20 different people here. And I would like to have a meeting on Monday evening at 7 o'clock, just for the group leaders to come together and kind of meet each other, and maybe start talking about doing some coordination and collaboration on things that I don't do a whole lot of that. I'm kind of working with the Morgantown Indivisible group, but statewide, this is a platform. If you want to use it, we can talk to everybody from around the state. And I think, that would be helpful. So I'm going to send that out as soon as this is over. And if we can, I did it once before and we had a few people, so we'll try it again and see what happens.
I love it. Unfortunately, I actually do. I have a work meeting that will probably conflict with that. Otherwise, I would absolutely be there. So maybe if you, Rick, if you can give me a little heads up on what might be discussed, I can maybe contribute sort of in writing.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, appreciate it.
We haven't sent it out, and I haven't really, we could set another date if we need to. So if you would want,
I mean, as long as that's one of the benefits of keeping sort of regular meetings, is even when something comes up and somebody can't do it, there's the next one. And again, like there's other ways to communicate these days, fortunately. So, I can find another way to again sort of participate, even if it's not in real time.
All right. Well, you'll get the email anyway, so you can send something back to me or talk to everybody else if you want through email,
right.
Whatever. And I would like to do this. I would like to do it on a regular basis. Like I said, I tried it once before. We had like 4 people came, and so we'll give it another shot. All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, everybody, thank you so much for coming tonight. And we're going to have to stay in the fight. It's going to get harder now, I think. And now that people see that the red people see that they can do whatever they want, almost. And they've been doing it anyway. So we will be back next week, Thursday, same time. And then we're going to take a break for Thanksgiving. And then I'm seriously thinking about taking a break through December as sort of a rest period. Lots of people have things going on anyway. And they wouldn't be able to come around. So probably be the last meeting of this year next week. So we'll see you next week at 7. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.